Okay, so welcome to the design development element of your project. Obviously we're following a design process, and it's not always a linear process, it's an iterative process, so you might jump from one area to the next area of the design process. But for this video we're just going to have a little look at developing your ideas. So you've got a range of initial ideas, we're going to start to develop those to see whether or not they make sense, and then we'll do what we want them to do, okay? Obviously a teacher will go over this in lessons, so this video is just an aid memoir really, just to remind you what was discussed. And sometimes in a design project you get something known as designer's block, for example, where you're not really sure how to take your idea forward. And one good way of helping, kind of giving a bit of structure to that, is by using the acronym SCAMPER. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll take your product, you'll take the acronym SCAMPER and see if you can develop your product in any number of different ways. So for example, can you substitute any part of your product and replace it with another part? Does it still make sense? Does it still work? Does it open up any more creative avenues than it would have done otherwise? Can you combine it with something else? So with another product or with another material, or we'll see a little bit later on with a fashion brand, for example. Does it add any value to your product? Can you adapt your product so it suits a different target market without losing sight of your original target market? What would broaden its appeal, for example? Can you modify your design? Can you change the proportions? Can you add? Can you subtract to it? Can you make small iterative changes until the product either is better than it was originally intended to be, or doesn't work anymore, in which case you stop the development there and then you move on to the next? Can your product have a secondary use, or can it be put to another purpose? That's P. Okay, if you can put to another purpose, it might extend the product life cycle, for example. Can you eliminate any part of your product and it still makes sense, it still work as it was intended to do? If you can, that means you've got superfluous materials or superfluous manufacturing techniques in there that aren't required. So how far can you eliminate elements of your product and it still makes sense? Can you rearrange or reverse your design in any way so that it works slightly better? Maybe that gives you an opportunity to try things out that maybe you would have thought were silly ideas to begin with, but will actually turn into something quite clever and quite marketable. So for example, we'll just take the Evian water bottle and we'll try Scamper just to see what we can come up with. So here's an example of taking the Evian bottle and reversing it, turning it upside down, and obviously changing the design, adapting the design slightly, but this means the bottle is much easier to fill and easier to drink from in certain circumstances. Here's an example of adapting. So the original design was a cylindrical type design, they've changed it to a square design. Okay, which means if it falls over, it's not going to roll off the desk. It's been put to another use. So in this case, once the bottle's been used and is no longer needed, it can be used as part of a solar light solution. Okay, combining, so taking extra elements, joining the objects together to give you a better product. In this case, adding handles. Okay, fairly obvious solution, that one. Modifying the design, so taking the product, thinking, okay, what is it about the product that doesn't work? Let's take that out and let's modify the design slightly. In this case, the water bottle obviously quite big and bulky, particularly if it's empty and you still have to carry it around. So in this case, the designer's come up with a compacting solution. So once it is empty, compacts down, doesn't cause you any problems carrying it around at all. Substitute. So in this case, taking away the material, the polyethylene terephthalate or low density polyethylene, and replacing it with stainless steel instead, but that will increase the life cycle certainly, because it would be far more reusable, far more valuable to keep around. Combining, in this example we've combined the Evian water bottle with Paul Smith brand just to probably increase the value of the water bottle, but also broaden its target market. And the last one, probably the most creative of the lot, I would say, eliminate. So clearly the goal of the water bottle is not to have a water bottle, is to allow someone to have a drink on the go. In this case, what they've done is taken the bottle away altogether and just thought about people on the go, and they've come up with this thing that's known as a bladder pack. So the backpack goes on if you're out running or walking or whatever, and then you've just got a little mouthpiece, and then your hands are free and you don't have to carry around the water bottle. So there's some examples of how you might apply the SCAMPER principles. It will just come down to you really, and your freedom to be creative in the project, particularly at the early stages where you've got the opportunity and the time and the leeway to be as creative as possible before you have to start thinking about manufacturing considerations at the earliest stages anyway. So you'll certainly have to consider those later on. But for now, let's just be as creative as we can be, and let's see what golden nuggets we come up with. Alright. Okay guys, so that was just a short introduction to Scamper. Hope it's useful. Good luck.